Hey, you guys. It is Convos for Black Women, and we are back. It's been a while. Like, a lot has happened. I feel like it's been a while since I've actually been on my Anchor slash Spotify podcast because I was gone for a while, and then I decided to kind of like start to transfer my podcast over to YouTube so it can be like visual and I can have, people on the channel chime in and things like that. So, yeah, I'm in the process of building that. I just got a new subscriber today, so I'm excited that it's being discovered on YouTube. But, anyways, I wanted to come on here because we need to talk about something that I have been thinking about for a while, and that is loss. And it's not loss in the sense of losing a loved one or a family member. It's not loss like that. It's loss as a woman. Like, what have you lost? When does the loss becomes way too high? The cost of loss becomes way too high for you. And what things have you lost due to your unwillingness to push yourself forward, to move on, to recover from a heartache, to continue to stay involved with someone who you know is not beneficial to your well-being in any form? When is the cost of that loss too high for you? So even though I've been thinking about discussing this topic for a while, it's just been something I've been playing around with in my head, and I have been thinking about personally or myself, right? And then last night happened, and I decided to have on a panel that I've seen, and they was talking about topics or what have you. And this woman, I can't call her a young lady. She's a grown woman. She's older than I am. Lived her life. Her children are grown out the house. And she came on the panel and she just started purging and divulging her business. And she was up there to get the opinions of others. And in the process was getting very offended and upset at what she was being told or the questions that was being asked of her to gain more insight into what was going on. But long story short, this lady, she's in her 50s, she basically wasted 26, 27 years of her life pining after and chasing after her child's father, which resulted in nothing for her. Nothing. And during conversating and during her talking and answering questions, you discover that, they had a child together. She really wanted to be in a committed relationship with her child's father. She wanted them to get married. She thought that it would lead to marriage. She thought that they was going to get married. This is something that she wanted from him, in that he did not give her. He also made children outside of the relationship. Now, whether or not, they was broken up, it was on again, off again, I don't know. But nonetheless, you're the one who seemed to stay for over 2 decades, despite him having multiple other children, despite not being able to be in a committed relationship with you, and despite you never getting married how you wanted to, because he didn't want that. Despite all of these things, you building him up or trying to help him out, as she said, you doing all of these things for him relocating a few times and doing things that in your eyes was not okay, and yet you still allowed them to come back into your life over and over and over again. And I just felt deeply saddened by her experiences, and even more so saddened at the complacency and her unwillingness. And I'm not saying that it's not a hard thing to swallow, to eat, And I think that's why it was so hard, and she was getting like so defensive in trying to justify or trying to defend her actions and her decisions that she made in life. Because now at this point in the game, it's over. It's over for you. For 20 some odd years, you wasted that on this one single person who could not give you all of the things that was on your list that you wanted for yourself. And that got me to think, what is the cost of your loss? And at what point is the price gonna become too high for you? Like, at what point are you going to say, yeah, nah, I'm going to have to walk away? I could not imagine sitting there having to get over and overcome and heal from and move on and accept my L. Take my L in stride that I sat here and chased after this dude for 2 decades, and I got nothing from doing that. I got nothing but resentment and bitterness in me not being able to come to terms with the fact that really I did this to myself. I won't even call it a woman's curse or a Black woman's curse, right? Because as women, we are supposed to be these beacons, these light bearers. We give birth, we give life. We are nurturers by nature, right? But I find that especially us Black women, sometimes we don't think logically. Sometimes that Black male worship, that wanting a piece of a man is better than no man at all type mentality, that oh well, he know where home is mentality, that he ain't going nowhere mentality is actually going to be what gets us nowhere and what is going to get you got. And this could very well be your story, where you wake up one day and you are looking around and 20 years have passed you by and you have nothing to show for it, because everything that you wanted out of this person that you loved so much, you didn't get. And you done complained, you done argued, y'all done broke up, done made up, you done begged, you done pleaded, you done cried, you done poured your little heart out, you done bared so much pain and so much loss, and it didn't get you anywhere. That is a pain and an assault on yourself that you did to yourself. That's too high. That is too high, and at some point you have to choose yourself. At some point you have to choose yourself and stop choosing to carry for someone else. Stop choosing to get along to go along with someone else. And I don't know why we do this. I don't know why we play dummy games expecting to win a prize at the end. When someone presents themselves to you and you see them for who they are, that is who they are. And real men that know and understand their divine masculine energy, right? Their divine masculine within them. If they are willing to change and solve a problem that you are having, you guys are going to have that conversation, right? And they're going to hear what you are saying, and if you are important to them, and if they are concerned about your well-being, and if they care and love you like they say they do, right? They are going to have that conversation and then follow up with action and follow through. That is what is required. Action and follow through to show you that they are serious. If someone doesn't show you that, then you get what you get. Far too many times we take L's when we don't need to, because we would rather put our emotions and our feelings to the side. Maybe it's lack of confidence. Maybe it's lack of self-worth. Maybe It's not wanting to feel lonely or always needing. It's codependency. It's being codependent and not independent. Not knowing how to move separately from someone, even if that someone ain't even helping you out really in the least amount of ways, even if they aren't even doing the bare minimum, but even if they was, and even still, if they was doing beyond that, simply they're not giving you what you want. The comfort of codependency can be so addictive and so very toxic to us. The comfort of just wanting someone to be there can be addictive and so very toxic to us. Us seeing and mimicking and mocking what we've been taught growing up. You see other women, you see the women that came before you, you see women in your peer group, and you see that they're all making great sacrifices, ultimately all for a man. They are making these great big sacrifices. They are taking these losses. They are bearing pains. They are not honoring themselves. And you begin to see that that is the way. That is normalcy. That is what we're supposed to be doing. And it isn't. We're supposed to be revered as women. Divine beings. Muses. That wisdom, that counsel. And yet the way we move at times and the choices that we make for ourselves, and when you make those choices, I know it takes a piece of your dignity away. It chips at it piece by piece, little by little. And you have to swallow that. That gulp is starting to become real hard. You know, when you swallow something down the wrong way, it's like, you start, because it's like the air done got in there. Oh, that jump used to hurt. And then your throat just be banging, your throat be aching and hurt. Yeah, that gulp is getting harder and harder. It's getting harder and harder to swallow. And you're sitting there with this person or this piece of a person or this bit of a man or this half of a man, and you're sitting there being blinded to the things that they're doing on the side. I'm going to pretend like I don't see it, or I don't want to know about it. I don't want to hear about that. Or you're stuck in that abusive relationship, or you're stuck in that miserable marriage or relationship. Or you're sitting there accepting what little you can from this dude because you love him, but does he love you? And what happened to loving yourself enough? What happened to loving yourself enough? The cost is too fucking high. The cost of loss for us is too high, and it's too detrimental to our mental health and to our soul health, to our well-being. It is too high. Every female I know, probably, even if I don't have to ask them, or the ones that I know, and I know, I've seen it. I was there firsthand or secondhand. I probably wasn't there when it happened, but you know what I'm saying. I was there to see when, this transgression, this loss occurred, to see the sacrifices that you made, because we all make them, right? We make sacrifices all the time. We make sacrifices as parents, as mothers. We make sacrifices for the greater good of your household, for what, we make sacrifices, but it's those sacrifices that take away pieces of your womanhood, that take away and eat at your self-esteem and your self-worth and your self-love and how you see that reflection. Those are things that takes so long, sometimes a lifetime, to get back and to piece back together. Anytime, and I'm probably sure if I was to ask a woman, what loss have you suffered behind a man? Or anytime a woman has suffered a demise or took an L, guaranteed, most times it's going to be, their story is going to involve a penis person. Their story is going to involve a man. There's females who have lost their families. They have sacrificed their family to be with a man. You know, they have decided that, you know what, I'm severing ties. I know that the bond between me and my family, me and my cousins, me and my sister, me and my mother might be broken, but I'm still going to choose to be with this person. And I hope they make it worth it for you. But 10 times out of 10, it's never worth it. And they can never repay that sacrifice. There's females out there who have lost their children, their own children, behind a man. That's a loss that could never be recovered. That's a loss that could never be forgiven. That you are willing to sacrifice your children, all in order to be with a man. The thing is that you have to start worshiping yourself in the same way that you worship men. Sometimes you be worshiping men, and it's like, for what, sis? For what? It can't be that serious that you would dishonor yourself and show a strong lack of self-love and respect and integrity to get disrespected and degraded at every turn, to take those hard swallows, for tears to hit your pillow at night, for the arguing, for the embarrassment sometimes of this dude. I see these posts going around now. You know, it's always a trend. It's always wavy. And it's like, a man has to have whatever, money. A man is in love the same as a woman, you know. Their love is conditional. Now, they're probably recirculating this because I believe Chris Rock said it in his last comedy show on Netflix, right? That a woman's love for a man is conditional, but a man loves a woman. Like, in what world was that ever the case? In what world was it ever the case that our love has ever been conditional or based on a condition? I see the comments and I see people talking. And some of them were saying, yeah, that's true, just because it might not be you. But for a lot of men out there, you know, women ain't going to F with them, mess with them, or deal with them if they can't provide. Providing and love has nothing to do with it. Furthermore, especially when it comes to Black women, what riches and jewels do you have? Most times, Black women are dating down. If they're not willing to date out, they know that they have to be willing, and it might be a strong possibility that you are going to be dating down. Most Black women garner more earnings than Black men. So it's not like we know our pool of men. It's not like we don't know that our pool of men are going to be these major earners and have all of these six figures coming in. And we're not talking about celebrity. What riches? What riches? We are choosing to date down if we choose you. We know what we are getting into if we choose to stay within our community. We know the pool. We know there's slim pickings within the pool. If we are even thinking about looking for or checking off every little thing on our list. We know the good, the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme at the top tier in that pool. That percentage is low. But furthermore, even if that didn't exist, going back before For time was time and time, as far back as we can go. A Black woman has loved Black men unconditionally, without zero conditions. And love and finances has shit to do with the other. But the love that men have for us is barely and rarely returned in the same way, on the same level. Reciprocation is very rare to receive. That you reciprocate everything that I'm putting out to you, all of my energy, all of my efforts, all of my love. And that is why, I believe it was my granddad that used to say, a man should love a woman more than a woman loves a man. Because it can't work the other way. It's never going to work the other way. You are going to end up exhausting yourself, trying to love a man to death in order to get him to give you even half of that, especially if there's very little there to begin with. Most times, and a lot of times, their love is based on conditions. So to have us fooled in these comment sections and all these memes, making it appear as though, oh, y'all only love us with conditions attached. No, baby. Maybe ultimately, if one is bold enough, we will, hand out an ultimatum. Suggest that you get your ish together for the betterment of the relationship. Maybe you need therapy to work out those issues that you refuse to work out. Like that trauma that you refuse to work out, but you use at your will and you hold on to, so that anytime something comes up, you can pull your trauma out of your back pocket to use as the excuse why you're such a fucked up individual, or why this is so hard for me, or I wasn't taught this because of this that happened in my past. They lack the foresight. They lack that sense of self-awareness to be able to notice when they are struggling and need help. And that is never a sign of weakness. But yeah, this is not about them. This is just about the losses that I've seen many women that have been close to me. Hell, women in media, Mary J. Blige suffered a loss behind her ex-husband. Recently, she came out and said, I couldn't even afford rent. Cleaned me out. I couldn't even afford to pay rent. That's a loss. And until you start working on setting boundaries and sticking to them, until you start building up your self-worth, and until you start building up that self-esteem, and until you start taking accountability for the current losses in your life that you have suffered behind men, you're going to continue to repeat that over and over again. You're going to wake up one day and it's going to be like that lady, 26 years. 26 years later, you a grown 52, 53-year-old woman still chasing and pining behind someone you met in your 20s. Waking up, that fool gone somewhere out the house. You waking up still feeling bad for yourself and, oh, I'm tired of this ish. And that's it. This is it. I can't take it no more. And having to bear the loss and take the L over the fact that you just wasted 2 decades, because you would rather sit there and do that than build up enough strength and courage to end it. Get through that hurt and pain of ending something that feels comfortable, because that's about all it is, right? Get over that in order to get to your glory, in order so that you can shine and excel. That just never sat right with me. And I've suffered losses as well, but it always came down to me over everything. It's going to be me over you. Because I just straight up refused. There was just some things, some shit that I just was not about to eat, swallow, take. So for a lot of people looking in, dang, I was always, she don't stay around for too. I don't stay around for too long. I do not. When I see it, I don't like it. If it keeps getting repeated, I got to go. Because I'm always going to choose me over everything. Because you don't want to wake up not liking that person that you gotta face in the mirror every day. You don't want to wake up feeling depressed and down every day. That funk and that energy, it lingers. It be in your spaces. It be in your sacred. It be in your bed. It be in your womb. It be in you. It be all over you. And so when you wonder why, some people would rather, they say, I would rather have my peace. Yeah, sometimes they'll say, sometimes being single is lonely, but I would rather have my peace. That, you need to get there. You need to figure out how I can get to that. And fuck that feeling of, I don't like being lonely. I don't like feeling uncomfortable. I don't like, I need somebody next to me. I need that companion. What's a companion if they giving you all this extra strife? Just to have a warm body to lay next to. Just to have another adult in the room to talk to, call a friend. But until you can learn how to be comfortable with yourself, comfortable being single, comfortable with just sitting there in your loneliness, and working it out and figuring out how to move and navigate without that codependency, without those bad habits, then yeah, you can very well be, sitting there after 25, 26 years, waking up, looking around, and now you old and bitter, and you yelling at everybody and lashing out because you're really upset at yourself. Because congratulations, you played yourself. The loss has always been too high for me. The cost of the loss has always been too high. And eventually, I was always going to choose myself. Year after year, suffering through the same things you've been suffering through year after year. That cost has always been too high for me. Feeling like shit, feeling like crap, feeling down, not understanding why things aren't working out. And that can be related to anything. Not wanting to make changes. Even if the changes would mean it's for the betterment of you. You're just not willing to do it. You would rather suffer the loss. So y'all really got to figure out what the cost of loss is for you. What is the cost of the loss for you? When will your tab become so high that you will have to throw your cards in and step away? For me, that tally, I got a short fuse. For me, that tally is not high at all. I know when I gotta throw my cards in, baby boy. I got to go. I gotta roll out. I got to what, child? I would rather have my piece any day. I got to roll out. But you're gonna have to figure that out for yourself. When is enough for you? When is your tab gonna run over? Because sitting there suffering and eating it, and it's eating your insides up, and you have lost everything around you. You mad at the wrong people. You projecting your ish out on other people because of your situation, because you're unhappy with yourself, because you're disappointed in yourself. Other people don't need to tell you. That's why I stopped telling people. I don't like pointing out obvious things, because more than 9 times out of 10, if it's obvious, then you know. You don't. So there's no point in kicking your friends or your relatives down. When something is obvious, it's obvious to everybody. You don't have to point it out. They already know. They're disrespecting themselves. They're dishonoring themselves. They already know. You already know, sis. You already know. Yeah. You gotta figure out when the cost of the loss is too high for you. So I just want to leave you with this takeaway, because these moments on the podcast is not supposed to be long. I don't want to keep you for no hour or two. But I really want you to tally it up and think about all of the losses that you have had to suffer and take. And each your L, take accountability. Hold that. Take accountability for it, because that's part of the deal. That's part of you being able to heal from it, is accepting it, and accepting that, you know what, I did this. I absolutely did this to myself. Recognize that you dishonored yourself. Recognize that. Acknowledge that and move on. You don't spend too much time beating yourself up, because the thing is we beat ourselves up in multiple ways, and we lash out in multiple ways, and we self-destruct and we self-sabotage in multiple ways. So that's beating yourself up enough, because you haven't forgiven yourself and you haven't accepted the accountability for it. Once you accept that accountability, then you can move on. So don't beat yourself up. Just work on recognizing the losses, how you've disrespected yourself. In what ways did you dishonor yourself? And tally it up. And like I said, you have to really figure out when the cost of the loss becomes too much for you. And when it's time for you to cash out your tab, throw in your cards, buckle down, do the healing work so that you can move on. If anything, don't let that be you, where you wake up at 50, 55, 60, and you take a look back, and your story as it pertains to the opposite sex is full of losses and full of L's and full of you not honoring yourself and full of you never receiving your reverence from a man, never knowing what that true love feels like, and that true support and that bond that should come with companionship. It has to be two people. Companionship isn't a one-sided thing. And a lot of times we can find ourselves in relationships where it's one-sided. And that's just to suit your comfort. It's one-sided, but it's not being reciprocated back to you. Don't suffer any more losses, and you'll be better for it. Later, you guys. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. Come over to Anchor FM or Spotify and subscribe to this podcast so that you can listen to these small doses of Convos for Black women.